Hi, I'm Annie Fitzsimmons. I'm your Washington REALTORS Legal Hotline Lawyer, and this is another video in our series on professionalism for the broker who wants to make real estate a career and not just a job. And so I am grateful to once again be joined by my friend Camden Schutte. Camden?
Yeah, I'm Camden Schutte with Coldwell Banker 360 team and 360 Property Management up on beautiful Whidbey Island.
Thanks for
thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was a long drive down here, but thank you for joining us.
Of course.
So today's topic is another one of your agency law duties. This is the duty of honesty and good faith. And hopefully you don't need a definition of those words. Hopefully you've known the meaning, the integrity of honesty and good faith since you were very, very young. If you have the chance to do the right thing, do it, right?
Absolutely.
Is there a better definition?
I think that's a pretty good definition.
Yeah.
I also think about our code of ethics and it's built off the golden rule and do unto others what you'd want them to do to you. And I think kind of keeping that in mind goes along with that.
Exactly. Agreed. So the Department of Licensing, of course, enforces the license law. And so the Department of Licensing is paying particular attention to the duty of honesty and good faith recently with respect to a few areas. And we could spend days probably talking about honesty and good faith, right? But for the purposes of this video, we're going to hit 4 topics that the Department of Licensing is looking at right now with respect to honesty and good faith. And the first of those is including your firm's name as licensed in a clear and conspicuous manner in all advertising.
Yep.
And Camden, one of the things that I'm seeing a lot lately is, for example, you said that your firm's name is Coldwell Banker 360 team, right? And so I'm seeing some advertising where somebody might just use Coldwell Banker, for example.
Yeah.
Or maybe they say Coldwell, or maybe they put their name in big headlines and Coldwell Banker 360 team in little teeny tiny print.
Yeah. Unfortunately, what we're starting to see more of too is the firm just being left off.
Oh, not including the firm name at all.
Yeah, and that one's really kind of frustrating. And I don't think it's intentional. I mean, obviously we all live by our code of ethics. But we're in such a crazy market where everyone's trying to be different. And I think in that attempt to be different, we have a tendency to forget.
Yeah, and what people want to brand their name or their team name.
And that's become so much more popular. Even all your personal branding, even if you're not a team branding, personal branding, and trying to be different and stand out.
Right. And so not only is it a licensing law requirement that the Department of Licensing does discipline around, but it's also kind of the backbone of our licensing law structure that every broker is licensed to a firm and that every firm is supervised, or the broker's licensed to the firm are supervised by the designated broker for that firm. So it is important for consumers, the Department of Licensing, and even other industry members to know the name of the firm to which you're licensed, and that's the reason for the requirement.
Yeah, absolutely. And even your name. I mean, a lot of times, your name might be Jonathan, but you go by John. And so making sure that your license matches that, and that's as simple as contacting the DOL.
And getting a name change on your license.
That's right.
Exactly. So while we're on the topic then of advertising, let's talk about truth in advertising. This is another area where we're seeing some problems lately. And again, I think it goes back to what you said a minute ago. If somebody's intentionally being deceptive, then shame on them. But I think more often than not, where problems are emerging today is that brokers are not intentionally being deceptive or exaggerating, but that's in fact what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the examples I've seen of it is in team relationships. For example, a team leader will claim responsibility or ownership, if you will, of every transaction that runs through the team, even though the team leader may have had nothing to do with that transaction. They're trying to skew the statistics so that they can claim that they represented buyers and sellers in 50 transactions last month, which of course is not true, right?
That would be like me as the designated broker saying that I handled all of our firm's transactions last year to try to further my business. It's just not true, even though technically I had some agency relationship there.
Yeah. So brokers, be careful how you hold yourself out in your advertising. I think also about business cards and what label do you include on your business card?
Yep.
Do you hold yourself out as a construction specialist, for example? And if you do, Is that true? Have you just done a recent construction transaction, so that's why you're a construction specialist? Or do you really have education and experience to support the notion that you are a specialist with respect to construction?
Absolutely, because you're telling the consumer, I have this knowledge. And you're going back to one of the other videos where we talked about working within your knowledge. You're setting an expectation with your customer that you have that knowledge. And if you don't, you shouldn't be handling that or working with someone who does handle it. But you're setting an expectation that you can't meet.
Yeah, so be careful how you hold yourself out. Taking this same notion of honesty and applying it transactionally, we've got examples of brokers. With respect to buyer brokers, I do think a lot of times it's unintentional. It's maybe even unknowing, which isn't a good excuse at all, but
Right.
It's actually a display of maybe incompetence, which is not good. And then on the listing broker side, I think that it's a lot easier to actually intentionally fudge those lines. But let's look at what I'm talking about. Buyer brokers. Are you seeing any kind of transactional patterns with dishonesty by buyer brokers as they're trying to advocate for their client?
I think forgetting to disclose contingent funds is probably one of them. Again, whether intentional or not, one of the areas where we see it missed the most is in down payments. You have a all cash offer. As a listing agent, you're going to want to know, is that contingent funds or non-contingent funds? You're going to ask for a 22EF. And you might have a 10% down payment. A lot of times, that's where we see funds not being disclosed. Again, whether intentional or not. As a listing broker, you better be doing your due diligence to find out the status of that buyer.
As a listing broker, yes, but with respect to the honesty component of it, buyer brokers, you have a job in representing your client. You're filling out the purchase and sale agreement for them. You're held to the standard of care of a lawyer when you do that. Paragraph A, the boilerplate paragraph of every statewide form says that buyer's not relying on a contingent source of funds unless disclosed within the purchase and sale agreement. So if, as Camden mentions, if your buyer's putting down 10%, but they're really borrowing that 10% from, their rich aunt, or they're getting it as a gift from their rich grandmother, or maybe nobody's rich, but they're getting the gift from the down payment funds from somewhere other than a bank account in their name, then those are contingent funds.
And maybe they're using a HELOC on the equity in their current home to buy a second home. And that's a confusing one.
Yeah, it is. We can have a different video on that one probably. Yeah. But make sure that you are honestly representing your buyer's financial capacity.
Yep, absolutely.
On the flip side, in this competitive market, are you seeing any kind of industry patterns with listing brokers displaying something less than honesty?
I don't think that I can say we've seen that pattern, but there's definitely the perception from buyers brokers around the idea of a listing agent saying, or a listing broker saying that they have multiple offers when they don't. And that's probably the biggest perception where specifically in this market, where there's concern around that.
Yeah. You have multiple offers, you don't, or exaggerating what a competing offer really says, or maybe
the competing offers expired.
Yeah, the competing offers are expired. I have multiple offers, but really you don't, because one of them expired yesterday and you've only got one left. And so listing brokers, just make sure that there is integrity in the representations that you make. It's easy, I think, to kind of lose yourself in the justification that it's in your seller's best interest to increase the price, but not at the sake of you being dishonest. That is never okay, and it's not justified by any outcomes for your client.
Absolutely. And you won't have a career in the business if that's the reputation you end up with.
And let's cover that in another video, right? So, anything else on this one?
We could probably go all day, but I think for the sake of time, we should stop.
Okay. If you have questions on this topic or any other, send an email to me, legalhotline@warealtor.org. Thank you for being a Washington REALTORS member.